Hi there, folks. Today we're going to be talking about Module 4, Numeration Systems, and this will just be a brief introduction. And so, what is a number? Currently, we use a base 10 number system, which is all well and good, but numerical systems and counting date back to the Ashango bone, which is pictured there. And even animals are capable of basic numeration. There's a great history when it comes to counting systems, as cultures across the world have developed different approaches to numbers, and our approach to counting continues to change in the modern era. This is one of the things which I find most enjoyable about mathematics is we can actually track history based on the idea of numbers. And so the history of numbers is fascinating. It begins with the idea of tally marks, and of course there was other forms of counting. As I mentioned, even animals are able to count. Uh, but the idea of tally marks and how that kind of built into things with the Egyptian number system and the Babylonian number system. And then East Asia had counting rods. And then there were the Roman numerals and the Mayan base 20 system. But when we start to see how numbers and number systems have evolved over the last 4,000 years, 10,000 years, however far back you want to go, we can really see that it's all about human connection. Uh, when we look at when different cultures are interacting with one another, that is when we start to see symbols start to change. It's when we start to see more development across the number system. Currently, we use the Indo-Arabic numeral system, which, depending on who you ask, dates back around 2000 to 2500 years. It's a base 10 system, but there have been pieces which have been added by all sorts of different cultures from across the world. For instance, the idea of decimals and fractions are fairly recent additions to them. They've only been around for 5 to 10 hundred years. And so very, very recent additions. But it's very interesting to see how things have changed. And one of the topics we'll be exploring is how have things changed when it comes to number systems over the generations. We will also be talking about modern number systems. And so modern number systems are designed around particular tasks. I mean, we have our standard number system, our base 10, Indo-Arabic, but we also have other number systems, such as binary or hexadecimal. We see those pop up in computer science. Over to the right are the codes for different colors in hexadecimal. And we still have historical applications involving base 60, base 360, base 24. I mean, these are things which do still pop up. There's 360 degrees in a circle. There are 60 minutes in an hour. There are 60 seconds in a minute. These numbers pop up here and there. And when we start talking about measuring systems, I mean, it can get very, very messy. When doing computations involving other bases, we need to go back to the original algorithms. What does a times table look like in hexadecimal? How do we add numbers in a different base? There is a lot of science which focuses on the idea of things like error correcting codes. And in order to do that, you're going to need to understand how these different base systems work. Depending on your major, you might not play with them that much, but it is a good thing to see at least once. And that's your brief introduction to numeration systems. That one was very brief. The big thing is focusing on the idea of the history. That's the one thing I want you to get out of it. Good luck, folks.